So what's different about our next quiz is I put a lot of the open-ended questions on the online portion. So besides some multiple choice, you're going to have some open-ended questions. So be ready for that, those of you who are following along at home. So part three, chapter six, it says, question number one says, in chapter six, we learned that an ing word could be a participle, but it also could be something that we had before, which would be a verb as well as a gerund. So how do I know which one it is? So if I gave you the sentence which says, daydreaming in class, Joel was imagining how he could make extra money by belly dancing at a retirement home parties and Amish weddings. Well, if I was asking about those three italicized uses of the ing, which one is each one? Well, I love starting with the verb. The verb's the easiest one to find. A verb is always going to be an ing as long as it has a to be verb with it. And so because this has a to be verb, was imagining, that's what makes it the verb. All right, it has that word was with it. Secondly, if I'm going to choose something to be a gerund has to be in a noun position. So notice how there's this word by. That's a preposition which is looking for its noun. And so I'm not sure what's happening here. And therefore, I say by dancing. This is the object of the preposition. That's what makes that a gerund. A participle is usually just kind of hanging out by itself. It doesn't have a to be verb with it, and it's not in a noun position. It's just kind of hanging out somewhere. So daydreaming is basically serving as an adjective describing Joel. It's a little bit confusing because Joel's doing all these actions, and that's part of nature that Joel as the subject controls all the verbs and even verbals. So yes, Joel is daydreaming, Joel is imagining, Joel is dancing. So you can't use that as a way of determining which one it is. You have to think logically, what position are they in the sentence? This is in a prepositional phrase and makes it a noun. This is with the to be verb, makes it a verb. This is just simply hanging out by himself. They're all describing Joel, but he's not really serving any other purpose other than an adjective, and therefore he's the participle. Number two is I'm going to give you four sentences. I'm going to ask you to combine them into one single sentence. One single sentence. But the thing is, I don't want you to use any coordinating or correlative conjunctions. Those are your fanboys. I don't want you to use an and or a but or anything like that to join them together. You can use because and when and if. You can use whos and whom's and that's. You can make participles. You can do any other trick in the book. You just simply can't use a coordinating or a correlative conjunction and make it all one sentence, not a run-on. So if I had a sentence which says, Eli was perspiring like a frightened gazelle. Eli clearly had the meat sweats. Eli had just finished his 8th New York strip steak at Golden Corral. Eli could only mumble and blink to communicate to his server. Now, if you want to get rid of that and that I've already written, you can. But what I want you to do is I'd like for you to use these sentences, put them all together, and then find a way of actually conveying the same thing with one single sentence. The easiest thing to do is to start off with a participle. All right, so start off with a participle if you can. So I wrote, perspiring like a frightened gazelle. And then I get to my main sentence. Eli, and then I took another one and made it into an adjective clause, who had just finished his 8th New York strip steak at Golden Corral. And then I did another participle, mumbling and blinking to communicate to his server. And then I finally came back to that sentence. Eli clearly had the meat sweats. So perspiring like a frightened gazelle, Eli, who had just finished his 8th New York strip steak at Golden Corral, mumbling and blinking to communicate to his server, clearly had the meat sweats. And that's just one way of doing it. There's all kinds of ways. You could say mumbling and blinking to communicate to his server, just having finished his 8th New York strip steak, perspiring like a frightened gazelle, Eli clearly had the meat sweats. Or you could say clearly with the meat sweats, Eli was perspiring like a frightened gazelle after he had just finished his New York strip steak, his 8th New York strip steak, mumbling and blinking. So there's all kinds of ways of doing it. Be creative. Just don't use an and or a but or any of your conjunctions like that. Lastly, our diagrams. These are two big boys, and the diagrams are some bigger boys that I think you can take on, but there's going to be a number of things in them. So on this one, which says, shocked by the cost of a Disneyland vacation, Austin decided to instead to plan a trip to Chernobyl land, where visitors can climb a rusted Ferris wheel and enjoy a radiating glow from the nuclear boutique. So I had this opening participle, shocked, making into a participle phrase, shocked by the cost of a Disneyland vacation. I also wanted to work in a little participle here, a radiating glow, kind of did that. But I also had this adjective clause, and I want to use either a relative adverb or a relative pronoun. So I wanted to practice using the word where. So you can see the word where here is connecting back to Chernobyl land. You notice here's my participle, which was shocked. Here is radiating. I threw in some other ones. Here's rusted, a rusted wheel. Also, be careful of your nouns. Like Disneyland's a noun. Ferris is the guy's last name. So just be careful of all those little details we're paying close attention to. These are all like the word shocked is describing Austin. Here's an infinitive up on a tree. Austin decided what. So just be real careful with these. These are not going to be easy diagrams. And then on number 2, ballroom horse dancing. I was going to say balloon, but ballroom horse dancing is a sport the Olympic Council had added to increase viewers, which the Olympic Games desperately need. Well, there's a missing that in the sentence. I gave you that clue because that's how I know to get from the first sentence to the second sentence. In order for me to get from those two, there had to be some kind of glue word, and the word "that's" my glue. So my first sentence says that ballroom horse dancing is a sport. Well, dancing is a gerund, so you can either put it up on a tree. I just simply directly stepped it. It's a really heavy step there. And here's ballroom dancing, but it's also horse dancing. Those are nouns serving as adjectives. And then I'm using that word "that" to describe the sport. I drew this incorrectly. Do you see that? Oh, Marsh. The word "that" is connected to sport, not dancing. What I'm saying is Olympic Council has added the sport, but I guess you could say it's added dancing. I guess it's all the same, but it really should go to the word sport. So the Olympic Council has added that. Remember, the word "that" is understood, so you can either put an X there or put the word "that" there if you'd like. And then they have added it Y to increase viewers. And what kind of viewers? They are viewers which the games need. The games need viewers. So I gave you an adjective clause here and an adjective clause here. I just want to see if you can deal with those two adjective clauses. And then obviously I didn't deal with it very well because I should have connected the word sport. But I guess going to dancing is also okay, but it really should have gone to sport. I apologize, everyone. All right. So those are some examples. If you can go back and explain those to yourselves and say, you know what, I think I got this, you're going to be fine on your diagrams. All right. So just make sure those two make sense to you now. Practice them again if you need to. Okay.